So for this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do a more detailed attestation. This may be used in an agreement where we might think there might be some conflict in the future. So we want to make sure we've got sufficient information so that we can track down the witness if we need to prove that the party actually signed the agreement. So just like the simple attestation, I'm going to use a table because that preserves our formatting. It's very easy for copying and pasting into other documents. So I'm going to go Insert. I'm going to do 3 columns like I did for the simple, but in order to collect that additional information, I'm going to need more rows. So I'm going to use 6 rows. I'm going to highlight my table and remove the borders like I did with the simple attestation, and make sure your grid lines are on. If your grid lines are not on, then come down here and select View Grid Lines, because that makes it a lot easier to work with your table. So I'm going to start by indicating who the witness will be. So I'm going to go all caps and write the word signed, and then lower caps in the presence of, and return twice to create 2 additional spaces because this is going to be where my witness is going to sign. So I will put the word signature of the witness. And then I will put a top border so that there is a space for that witness to sign. They can sign right there. So again, remember to create that extra space below the word signed in the presence of, so that there's sufficient space for your witness to sign. And then I can create additional space here, or I can play around with the spacing. Either way, I find it easiest to just press enter. Next, we're going to have name of witness. And this is, where the witness can write their name, and above that, they will be signing their name. So I'm going to put that top border there, press enter to create space so that there's room for them to create or write their address. And we will need 2 lines for their address. You can put their city and all the information that's required. And then finally, we will put occupation, again, just giving us a little more information if we need to track them down in the future and confirm which person this was. So if it's Jane Smith, we have to have their address and occupation, then we're more likely to find which Jane Smith we're talking about. Again, we are going to move this column over to the 7, so we've got more space to include all of that information. We are going to move the outside column to the 8. And then unlike the simple attestation, we are just going to put a little more formality and put an end bracket in between the 2 rows. We are starting to see this come up as a line, which is much more sleek and modernized, but it has been an end bracket for quite some time, going back to typewriters. So it's just become a bit of a tradition to use the end bracket. We'll see if that changes. As I mentioned, I'm starting to see more where people are just drawing a solid line in there, which does look quite nice, but I'm going to go with a more common end bracket for this. And then to make sure that there's equal space on either side of that end bracket, I'm just going to center that. And then we have equal space between each side. So on this side, this is where we would put the party's name. So if it is John Smith, for example, we would put their name there. If I'm creating a precedent, then I don't want to have any client's name in there because I want to be able to copy and paste it into any document I want. So I'm just going to use @ as a marker so that I remember I'm going to put the party name in there. Maybe a little reminder @ and then highlight that in blue to make sure I don't forget to fill out that information. And then we've got put the spot for that party to sign. So I'll go here and just add that top border so that there's a place for them to sign. And so there we've got our nice attestation clause. Again, we can copy and paste this as many times if we have 6 parties, and we can just easily copy and paste that. So I do recommend that you create these precedents to make it easier. One additional thing I'll note here is that if you are going to type in the name and address of the witness, for example, you know it's going to be somebody from your law firm, then I would not type it above here. That gets it's really hard to kind of read. So what I would do is make a separate one for that information. So I'm going to just start from the beginning, and I'm going to insert 6 lines. Again, remove the border. And I can just copy from here, signed in the presence of. And then, for example, if it's going to be Frederick Larson from our law firm, then we can just write and type in the address. And it just looks much cleaner than trying to add it into the form. In most cases, you will just leave it blank because any lawyer from the firm then can sign it, and we don't have anybody hard typed in there, and they will have stamps where they can have their address and occupation. And actually, I didn't need to put all of those additional rows there because we just need one. And then we need a spot for Fred to sign. So we're going to put the top border there. Oops, I'm in the wrong spot. Move that, put that down there. I could have done a bottom border from that. And then we've got the party name going on the other side. And I'll do a bottom border here to show it's going to go in the same spot. And then I want to put that to 7, put that to 8, and do all of my end brackets. Make sure you don't miss any of those end brackets, so you don't want to have a gap in there. Now note that I've got an extra space here, so I don't want the end bracket going longer than here. So I can remove that extra space or just make a note to myself that I'm not going to put anything there because I don't want these the separation going longer than the attestation clause. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to center those so that there's equal space on either side of those end brackets. And there we go. We've got a detailed attestation clause if we don't know who the witness is going to be so that they can fill that all out on their own. And again, even if it's a lawyer from your firm, that's fine to leave that there. They'll sign it and then you can stamp their name and address with their stamp on there. If you do want to include the lawyer's name, then you would just type that in and remove all the prompts because that just gets overwhelming. Thanks.